Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is 5:26 a.m. East Coast time, Sunday, August 4th, and we actually have some afternoon baseball today. Did not have any, well, I guess we had like 1 and 2 game slates yesterday, or 1 game showdown slates, which is crap. So now we have a full 9 game afternoon slate. Very excited to break it down. A couple interests, lots of interest. There's a lot of quality pitching on the slate at different price ranges. We'll kind of get into all that, good matchups, good just overall talented pitchers, get into all that. So welcome if you're new to the channel. Lots of times on the weekends, a lot of new people discover me. Well, because it's the weekend, they have more free time to do things. You're not working at your job, you're not working at your business, whatever it might be. You actually have time to do things, maybe, unless you got kids and you got some dance recital or something, then you're gonna go to some water park. I feel bad for you. But anyways, welcome. If you're new here, my name is Sal Vetri. I cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, MLB, WNBA, all that stuff. There'll be a WNBA video up today. There'll be an NFL, probably first look video tomorrow. I am creating an NFL course. I'm about 60-70% of the way done with it. This is some of the things that's going to be in the course. I'm going to continue to add more, but quickly just to show you, I'm going to show you how I build my stat sheets for the NFL, similar to this one. I'm going to show you my bankroll allocation formula and all that. I give that all to you. A bunch of stuff in here, talking about ownership, talking about how opportunity reigns supreme, how to stack, what stacking is, general rules, key stats. I wrote about a 4-page article for each key stat in here, for each position. And it's not just your, rushing attempts. Yes, that's clearly good. That's going to be in there. Oh, it's not just your quarterback yards per game or things like that, or their touchdowns. No. These are key stats. Things like elusive rating, success rates for running backs, time spent behind the line of scrimmage, all that. But anyways, you can sign up for that down below for free. It's an email opt-in. The opt-in is free. It just says Sal when the course is ready, which should be in a few days. Let me know when it's ready, and I will come back and then decide if I want to purchase it or not. Do not know what the price is going to be yet. It all depends on the interest level and all things like that. So appreciate that. If you want to sign up, there's some other free guides down there below as well. We'll talk about DFS. And yeah, before we get into it, if you are new and this is your first time, see if you get some value from the video. If you do, if you can hit the subscribe button, I greatly appreciate it. If not, and you don't, well, I'm sorry I didn't deliver for you, but it's a free video anyway, so hopefully you get another one. But yeah, the subscribe button helps me grow, helps me attract potential third-party offers, so I can continue to do this and actually be paid for it, because it does take about 5 to 7 hours a day for everything that I'm doing. That's why I kind of created a Patreon page down below where I also do articles later in the day. You click the link to Patreon if you want my article, and it'll take you there. It'll describe everything about what you get for the article, and as well as just a video generally speaking on what Patreon is. So that's all the plugs. They usually take about a minute to get out of the way, but we do have new people here every single day, so appreciate you guys respecting that. Skip through them if you're here and you don't want to hear any of the plugs. You're already a Patreon, you already signed up, all that stuff. But yeah, let's get into this afternoon slate that I'm very excited. It starts at 1 or something. So yeah, got a lot of things to do today, but we'll definitely be tracking some of my lineups. Top of the slate, Verlander. He's $12,000. He is very expensive. He's over $1,000 more than anybody else in the slate. But it's pretty hard to not recommend Verlander, or at least have early interest in Verlander, for a guy who, even when he gives up 2 home runs like he did 3 starts ago against Texas, still has the ability to drop 30 plus fantasy points, because he does go out there 3 starts in a row, 11 plus strikeouts. He does go out there and get strikeouts. He does give up home runs, 1.66 home runs per night. That number has slowly come down a little bit from around the 1.8 range. And now he gets a team that strikes out. He gets to face the Mariners, and they strike out 25.3% of the time on the season. And against righties since the start of June, they strike out 24.5% of the time. That 24.5% of the time is tied for the 3rd highest on this slate. So I'll take that, the 3rd best strikeout matchup on the slate, against the best strikeout pitcher on the slate, who has the highest strikeout percentage at 33.6%. Doesn't walk guys. There goes the alarm. Tell me to get up at 5:30. I was up at 5. You kidding me? Alarm, back off. He has the best Sierra at 3.14 Sierra. Doesn't walk guys, like I was saying, and he goes the deepest into the games by a decent margin. He goes 6.57 innings pitched per start, compared to Noah Syndergaard, who's going about 6.38 after that. And nobody is, the next closest guys are like Shane Bieber and Brad Keller, who are barely cracking 6 innings. So what you get out of Verlander very often is 7 innings pitched per start in an average to good matchup. I would say that this is an average to good matchup for sure. Seattle does have power against righties, and 187 ISO. So that's a little bit worrisome, but the park to anything in Houston is going to play more neutral, if not pitcher friendly, than hitter friendly, or that's how it's played this year. So yeah, it's not that difficult to understand. He's $12,000. I get it. You have to pair him with a cheaper pitcher if you really want to pitch him. There are a few cheap pitching options or cheaper pitcher options on this slate. Find the stacks potentially later on in the article. But yeah, you have to have interest in the guy who is facing a strikeout team that has the ability to even give up damage. Like I said, he gave up 2 home runs against Texas a few starts ago. Still got you 32 fantasy points. He gave up 3 home runs about 5 starts ago. He only got 15 points, but think about that for a second. He gave up 3 home runs and like 5 earned runs, and he still got 15 points. Usually you're hoping for your player not to get you negative in that situation. And that's because he struck out like 12 batters. So the upside is there for this guy. Again, $12,000, you need him to sort of get you the 30 plus fantasy points that he's done for 3 straight starts. He's going to come down to earth at some point. But it's not like he can't give up a solo shot or 2 and still not get you there. So Verlander, definitely the guy, goes the deepest into the games, best strikeout rate, strikeout matchup, pretty easy and obvious to see. I think he's too cheap at $12,000, to be completely honest with you. Number 2 is Caleb Smith against Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay strikes out 24.7% of the time since the start of June against lefty pitching, and they also only have a power rating of 174. So here's the thing, Tampa Bay's got a lot of powerful bats. Tommy Pham's a righty, so a lot of powerful bats from the left-hand side of the plate. Kiermaier, Meadows, Tommy Pham's a righty, so he's the one guy who can give you damage from the right side of the plate, and that's kind of where you get Caleb Smith struggling. A 219 ISO to righties. A lot of that home run upside is coming. The 1.58 home runs per 9 is being given up to righties. Now you're pitching in a ballpark that'll probably play hitter friendly. It's a little bit worrisome for Caleb Smith today, but I do like him. Again, he's facing Tampa Bay, who is striking out a good amount against lefties, and he just has dynamite strikeout stuff. 32.4% against righties, 27.6% against lefties. It's a total of 30% even and flat. There are a lot of concerns. He has the lowest ground ball rate on the slate, 27.5%. He has the highest fly ball rate on the slate, 49.5%. So he's not a ground ball pitcher. He's a guy who's going to strike you out, or you're going to make contact, and it's going to go a long way. It's very scary to pay $10,600 for a guy like that. But again, on a slate like this, 9-game slate, where you have a nice opponent who does strike out against a pitcher who is striking batters out at a good clip, a third of the time pretty much, he is interesting to me, at least early on. If I had to point out other things that are going to be potentially okay for him, a 3.77 Sierra, that's pretty good. That's top 5 on the slate. Top 5, although he's priced as the 3rd highest, might not seem as good. But those 5.71 innings pitched per start as an ace for $10,600, you usually like to see that number around 6, like it is for Syndergaard, Shane Bieber, and Verlander in the 10K range. But there is something about Caleb Smith's strikeout stuff that when he is on, he can go for, a lights out performance. We've seen it multiple times this season, multiple times since he's even come back from the injury list. So I have to see what the totals are for this game. Most of them are not out yet. That's going to really indicate my interest in Caleb Smith. If Vegas has confidence in Smith and Tampa Bay has one of the lower totals on the slate of these 18 teams, I'm going to be getting to some Caleb Smith today. It's a $1,400 savings off Verlander for a guy who has similar strikeout stuff. Not as dominant against lefties, nowhere near Verlander, striking out 36.2% of lefties, but he does strike out more righties. So I'll have to see what the total is. If it's anything around average to a good total today relative to the slate, then I'm probably not getting there. If it's lower, then I'm going to have more interest. My third interest is Yonny Chirinos at 8,600 against Miami. Look, we target Miami all the time. I do think Miami is a lot better than people give them credit for, at least since the start of the summer. Their ISO has picked up from what it is on the season of 125. People look at that and say you're terrible. Their ISO, at least against lefties since the start of the summer, is 152. You're still terrible, but it's better than 125. And then 140 against righties. Pretty bad, but better than 125. So you get Chirinos, who's going on average 5.5 innings pitched per start. That's actually pretty good. He's priced exactly how deep he goes into the games for the most part at 8,600. Same guys around him going that deep into the games. Only walks 5.6% of batters. Gives up a little hard hit contact. Gets a lot of ground balls. Gives up little fly balls. His fly ball rate of 32.5% is actually top 4 on the slate. It's 4th on the slate if you want to be specific. But now he gets Miami, who strikes out 25.5% of the time against righties since the start of June. Second highest on the slate, only to the Chicago White Sox. So you're getting a team that strikes out. Does he have strikeout stuff? No. He strikes out 21.9% of guys. 21% from the right-handed side. 23% pretty much from the left-handed side. He doesn't have strikeout upside, but he's in this range now where I'm not paying too much for him for me to feel like, okay, I'm not getting anything out of this guy in terms of having upside. He's a huge favorite facing a team that strikes out. He goes deep into the games, and he does a decent job limiting damage. He gives up damage to righties is my only concern. A 154 ISO to lefties compared to a 187 ISO to righties. It's nothing crazy, 187. The league average right now is like 175, so it's not like it's in the 200s. But this lineup is going to be built on 8 to 9 righties today for Miami. So very worried, or not very worried, but very concerned there if indeed we do get a full righty lineup for Miami, because then just overall the power index for the Miami lineup goes up a little bit, which it's not high to start with, but it goes up higher than what we're kind of singling them out for, right? So keep that in mind. I do think his price point is interesting because if you do want to get to Verlander and or Caleb Smith today, it's going to be very difficult to also pair Yonny Chirinos with them, because it's not like this is a high upside strikeout pitcher who can get you there when you're pairing and you're spending $20,600 pairing him with Verlander on your pitchers, and the best thing that you're hoping Yanni Chirinos to do today is get you like 18 fantasy points. That's usually not good. So Chirinos has some interest for me, sort of if you're trying to be different and start him as an SP1, I think he's viable, but as an SP2 on this slate, I do not think he is viable. My fourth interest is Jake Odorizzi, and I really like this price of $7,800 for Odorizzi. He's the biggest favorite on the slate against the Royals. We've been picking on the Royals and the White Sox so much, even more than really Miami, at least I have, over the past couple weeks. What is there to say? KC continues to be the worst team in the league against worst team in the league since the start of the summer against right-handed pitching. A 125 ISO. I have to update this. I didn't update it yet today, but nothing's really changed over one night. A 125 ISO since the start of June. They strike out only 22% of the time, so the strikeout stuff isn't as much there. Odorizzi does have strikeout stuff, striking out 27.5% of lefties, 23.6% of righties. It gives you a 25.5% clip overall. And now the thing to like the most about Odorizzi, he does limit damage, 1.16 home runs per 9, 137 ISO to righties, 176 to lefties. So about average ISO given up to lefties this year, well below average to righties. So what does that give you against this this Royals team? This Royals team strikes out a ton, they hit the ball on the ground a ton. You get Odorizzi coming in here who's not getting a ton of ground balls, which is worrisome, but not giving up a lot of power, so it's usually going to translate to more ground balls than usual for him. So the price tag at $7,800, the matchup, the fact that he's this huge 220 favorite in this price range makes him interesting to me. Overall, it's not a high upside play. The matchup makes it more upside in terms of being to get you to the 20-point range. He's not a guy who has overpowering strikeout stuff. He has decent strikeout stuff. He's not a guy who limits damage, with his 44% hard hit percentage being the third highest in the slate. That can get scary. It can make KC's overall offense seem a little bit better today when a pitcher doesn't get a ton of ground balls and he does give up hard hit contact, but he is still limiting the overall home run ball with only 1.16 home runs per 9. Right around average or so, a little bit above average maybe, but yeah, he's my fourth interest today at $7,800. It's really a pricing play for me there based on matchup. The fifth and sixth interest, these guys are just both disgusting in my opinion. But Drew Smyly and Joe Musgrove, they're touching each other in price point. Drew Smyly at $6,600. I mean, if you want to look at his season stats, he's just terrible. Like if I can put it just that way, he's been really, really bad. As of late, he's pitching better, but he's bad starts are getting kind of pulling down everything overall. As of late, he's pitching better in terms of fantasy, but in real life, he has a 5.24 Sierra. I mean, that's the second highest on the slate. That's terrible. Walks 12.5% of batters, 2.66 home runs per 9. I get it. There's going to be a smaller sample size in here. What has he started like 8 or 9 times now? It's starting to become bigger, but he's a guy who's giving up the highest hard hit contact on the slate at 47.4%. No ground balls for this guy, not striking anybody out, 22.6% against righties, 21% overall, giving up tons of power to both sides of the plate, like I said. But the good thing is he gets probably the easiest matchup on the slate in terms of the White Sox, who only have a 169 ISO against lefties, and they strike out 24.6% of the time. Now, here's the thing. I like targeting the White Sox when they're facing righties because they have a 130 ISO, much lower than 169, right? Pretty much no power, and they strike out 26.2% of the time compared to 24.8 against lefties. I want to see what the White Sox implied run total is today. Drew Smyly is going to be a decent sized favorite here. He is a lefty, so I do think it is a better matchup for the White Sox than if it was a righty. They do struggle more against righties, like I said. He's not a guy who anything stands out outside of his recent performances where he had good fantasy outings because he picked up the wins and was able to get into the 20 fantasy point ranges, right? Outside of that, he walks 12.5% of batters, 2.66 home runs per 9, highest hard hit percentage on the slate, the second lowest or third lowest ground ball percentage on the slate, the third highest fly ball. Like, everything's bad about this guy. Doesn't strike guys out. So if people are going to go to Drew Smyly and ownership is going to be there because of his recent success, I'm just going to avoid it. I get it. It's probably the best matchup on the slate overall. But when you break it down to see how good the White Sox or how bad they are against left-handed pitching, it's a lot better than what you would target them for based on how bad they are against right-handed pitching, right? At least since the start of June. So they're a little bit better against lefties. The 169 ISO, instead of them being the second worst team in the league in terms of their power rating, if they were facing a lefty, they would be the seventh worst team. So it's a big difference between second and seventh worst, right? I probably wouldn't target them as much. So I'll probably stay away from Drew Smyly today, but it depends on ownership. Joe Musgrove is a name that's always down here, and he's a name that at this point naturally garners ownership because he's Joe Musgrove. People know that name, and he's cheap. And there's not much to say. He has a 24% strikeout rate in this range. That's pretty good based on the price point that you're paying for him. Only walks 5.7% of batters, goes 5 1/3 innings pitched per start. Nobody else outside of Brad Keller below 7,000 is even getting into the 5th inning per start. So decent stuff there. He does, on average, pitch really well for a $6,000 pitcher, right? You're looking for 10 plus fantasy points, and then anything more is good. Just stay in the positives and get me to double digits, and then we'll see where we can go from there. The Mets are not a good matchup, though, if we're really any pitcher since the start of the summer, more so lefties, but even righties, which Joe Musgrove is. So you're going to get Musgrove going up in here in Pittsburgh, which is worse than playing in Citi Field. It's going to be much more hitter-friendly in Pittsburgh. Mets only strike out against righties 21.5% of the time since June, and they have a 182 ISO that they're producing. So none of that stuff is making me really excited to play Joe Musgrove. Again, it's the main reason that on this slate, he is once again cheap, and he is going deep into the games, doesn't walk guys, doesn't really give up a ton of home runs. Fly ball percentage is only 36%. Ground ball rate's 43.2. Anything above 40 is usually serviceable. Anything approaching 50 is usually really good, or is really good. So Musgrove at 6,200, decent strikeout stuff. Yeah, it's a factor of price. It's a factor of the slate around him. I don't want to play Javi Barea against Cleveland. I'm not playing Adrian Hauser versus the Cubs. I don't care that Adrian Hauser's ground ball percentage is 53.8%. He's striking out 26.5% of righties. He's a bad pitcher. His 3.99 SIERA shows that he's been pitching well this year. But a lot of that is on some limited samples that you're looking at in terms of he has only pitched in one game as a starter, or a couple of games as a starter, came out into the rotation back into the last game after being used as an opener for a little while. But he's had now, I think, 6 total starts. So you're looking at a very small sample for Adrian Hauser, a lot of which on FanGraphs is kind of pulling from that last game. So he's going to continue to start here against the Cubs. He has not had success this year. The Cubs are going to strike out a good amount of times against righties, 24.7%, but they also have a ton of power, 191 ISO against righties. And playing now in Wrigley Field in the middle of summer in an afternoon game, I'm going to stay away from Adrian Hauser. I get it, $5,000 is going to be very attractive. Maybe later on today I'll get more interest there. But as of right now, it's Justin Verlander, Caleb Smith, Yanni Chirinos, Jake Odorizzi, Drew Smiley, and Joe Musgrove. Those 6 pitchers are where my interest lies. Guys that I want to look a little bit more into who probably won't be as owned. Sonny Gray caught my eye to start with because he's so cheap, but I can't go to Atlanta. They're the #1 power team since the start of June against righties with a 227 ISO, and they only strike out 22.3% of the time. I can't get there, even though Sonny Gray is really, really good this year, and he's a 54% highest ground ball pitcher on the slate, second lowest or third lowest fly ball percentage on the slate, strikes out 28% of overall batters, doesn't give up damage. He's been so good. I just don't want to be pitching him against the Braves. But if you do, at least he's cheaper at 8,100. His price has come down way too much. He's way too cheap, but the matchup is actually frightening. And then, Adrian Hauser is a guy I'm going to look into for the article. I just labeled 6 interests. I imagine some of those guys are potentially going to come out. I could already think of a couple that are going to come out. Some guys maybe come in. The only one that would really come in would be a Sonny Gray or an Adrian Hauser. So keep an eye on that. You can get the article down below. If you're wondering why I'm talking so soft-spoken, well, it's because I'm recording this in my new living room in North Carolina. It's 5:40 in the morning, and my girlfriend's sleeping not in the living room, in the bedroom. So I'm trying to be a little bit quiet, but yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're still watching. Follow me on Twitter at DFS for more updates. You can follow me over there. Again, subscribe button helps. Sign up for that NFL DFS course below. Signing up is totally free. Just gives you an email opt-in. There will never be any spam. And you can just say, Sal, let me know when the course is ready. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.